Alright, you guys, welcome back. We're going to take a look at all of the skinning work that you guys have done on your rig. Hopefully we've got a completely functional rig now. And then we're going to move on to animating and importing and setting them up in Unity, and then we'll be done with this, and you'll be able to set up any semi-humanoid character that you ever want to set up for game development, which will be cool. I was just mentioning that there is a video in Discord chat that shows you how to fix the wrist controller issue, and it looks like Devin actually did it already because this is his file. When I wiggle the elbow, you can see the wrist stays completely still, and if I move the wrist around, it will just hold whatever position I put it in and not try to rotate along the forearm, which is ideal. So that's what that video is meant to show you. But let's take a look at the skinning. So that's the stuff we're testing now. So there's a little bit, maybe too much motion in the rest of the chest when I'm moving this. The clavicle and shoulder area are one of the trickiest areas to get. As I'm moving this around, the sleeve area looks fine, the arm looks fine. Could probably match up the weights from bicep to sleeve a little bit more carefully. You just have to look at what bones are affecting that area and make sure that the values on these vertices are the same as on these ones, and then they won't do that. But in general, seems okay. Yeah, this is going just a little bit too far across the middle, and it looks like it needs to be blended in the middle so that there's a softer kind of effect through the collar. And probably we're going to find the same thing with head and neck, that, yeah, it's going to like go through the collar quite a bit. Although the amount of bend looks pretty appropriate. We're probably moving the collar area and the chest area far too much when this is happening, so I would reduce that, but it's a very tricky thing to get. So not too bad, but not perfect, but hey, it's the first one. Let's see how the mouth went. Okay, so got to affect the hair as well. The hair should really only be skinned to the head bone. Final one up there. You don't really need anything other than that. That said, the mouth deformation is looking okay. Nice open and closed mouth. Looks soft enough, pliable enough. Jaw area looks good. Ear looks good. Yeah, I'd say generally pretty good here. Let's make sure that the eyes move. Yep, only the eye meshes. Very good. Let's take a look at the fingers real quick. I actually went back and fixed the fingers on my rig. Okay. And bent. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay. Let's try some of the fingers. So when I wiggle them, I'm looking for, is there going to be a wiggle in any of the other fingers? Because that would be what we want to avoid. And then some of it's down in the palm and in the back of the hand, where if I bend, how much of the mesh back here is moving. It looks like he's got it really tightly controlled. So that's good. Sometimes I let it be a little bit looser than that so that it feels more like flesh, but nothing wrong with having nice tight control. Cool. And pretty much preserved the shape of the finger. So that's another thing I'm looking for is, does the finger lose volume when it bends? For yours, the pads and the tops look great. The middle looks like it might be losing a little bit of volume, and that would be the hardest one to control. So don't obsess over that, but you're doing a pretty good job here. Yeah, they all look flexible. They all look like they're maintaining their volume, and they're not affecting anything back here. So here's one part like I can point out just because the pinky's visible. These vertices right here, when I bend this in, I typically give these vertices more weight for the previous bone so they stay put, and it's something like an 80-20 split or maybe like a 90-10 split, something like that, so that they hardly move at all, and that maintains the volume. And then you have to very rapidly reduce that number. Like here would get down to like 50%, maybe 30, and then by here it's like 10%. And so that's a very, very quick turnaround. But on the knuckle side, it's a lot more gradual. So you could have this like, 70%, 60%, and then 50, and then like 20, and that tends to work a little bit easier. Cool. Looks good. Let's do primary body bending. Okay. So I'm looking for smooth bending, which it looks like it's doing, and looking for, is it moving the belt line area. So for yours, I think, again, a little bit too tightly controlled. I can see one line of vertices that's moving and one that is completely locked. This is all shirt, so it would be reasonable to smoothly blend that down all the way over towards the belt line. And that's kind of what the smooth brush is for, is that it will split the difference. So I would probably like stretch and bend them out and then take the smooth brush in there and brush across that area to kind of let the shirt continue bending a little bit longer. Okay, so we've got zero movement on the belt, which is a little bit odd, but I understand why you did it because I was talking along those lines. I ended up letting, I ended up letting the hip swivel affect the belt. I gave the root nothing, I think, in the end, and then distributed the rest of the weights in the bones in the upper body. So the root is literally just for moving the other bones around, and it doesn't have any skinning applied to it. But this is a solution also. I mean, when I move this, it's all going to look fine. And then if the hip is just used for a little adjustment, it's okay. But we couldn't do major swiveling like this. That was the problem. So I would suggest applying it to applying all this skin to the hip bone or the hip pivot bone instead of the root. But it's not going to stop you from animating it. And really, we want to kind of just move on with this one because the first time doing skinning, it's really crazy. And it's a lot of work. Let's take a look at the legs. You got all the major things handled though. Like when I move one leg, the other leg doesn't move. So that's good. Nothing looks like it's flying apart or inappropriate things moving. I should probably zoom out, move this to see if any of the other limbs move. Same thing with the arm. Kind of just wiggle it around, see if any of the other limbs move. A couple people were messaging me. They had trouble, like they do something like this and parts of the leg would move. So that sometimes happens. And usually we try to handle that stuff first. Okay, let's see. Foot could probably use improvement. It might be where the bones are. Yeah, in your case, it's where the bone is, so there's not going to be a lot that you can do. It's just a bit too far forward. If it were a little further back, then this stuff could hold still a bit more. But I think that said, the paint weighting could help if you give these two lines of vertices almost entirely to this last bone or to the ball, then they won't be squishing as I'm rotating like this, and it makes the foot kind of lose some volume. So be careful about that. And could probably match the cuff a little bit more to the foot. But yeah, overall working, overall a rig that I can recognize as human, can do its squishing and squashing and moving, is going to be able to animate properly, especially since you've handled the fingers. Hip could probably use a lot more detail work, but again, like I say in the video, that one is horrendous. It's really hard. I do have that time-lapse video where it shows me going through all of this, and I end up giving a lot of ownership of the butt and to the thigh to this bone so that it maintains volume, and then very carefully try to blend it so that we maintain the round shape of the butt as it's pinching. The crotch area actually shares a lot more blended because it's just kind of like jean material, so it has to share between both sides to sort of like tug at these vertices as we're, spreading and folding the legs. But like I said, it's a really tough thing to do. So yeah, overall, pretty good. A couple little things here and there that aren't working entirely 100%, but they're pretty minor. They would be easy fixes if you wanted to. All right, thank you. Let's look at Kayla's. All right, so let's try the root for the heck of it. It's probably not going to reveal anything. There we go. Let's do the pelvis. Okay, not too bad. Okay, that might be more like the default, or this could have, detail work on it. I can't tell, but it's moving and just not like squishing and squashing like crazy, which is a good thing. Let's try bending the body. Oops, I want to get that to render. Oh, that's the bones layer. Geometry layer. There we go. Yeah, I think it's still kind of default because the upper body is moving the belt, or you just didn't think about like should you eliminate that motion. So the nothing in the upper body should affect the lower portion of the belt at least. Maybe the upper, but with the belt it's weird. Like if you affect the upper, you kind of have to affect the lower. Otherwise, it looks squishy. So I'll bend this one. So yeah, that one does nothing. So that's good. So it's just down here. I would probably reduce that. And like I said, give it to the hip swivel instead. Let's go to the upper body. Unbend this. Looks like you got some normal issues in the collar there. Okay, yeah, the collar is not yet working. It kind of looks default still. It's just going straight through the neck. Now the neck is not bending and pinching, which is a good thing. But yeah, the shirt and collar need help. Okay, that one's real bad. When the neck moves, the chest should stay still. So you got to get rid of all that influence. Same thing here, kind of just relegate that just to the head, not to the neck. Okay, and so the jaw isn't done. I'm not sure how far she got. It says work in progress up here. And so maybe we're just kind of to the first binding and there hasn't been any painting done yet. I can't really say for sure. Whoa, the thumb looks messed up. Oh, maybe it was just rotated. Okay, well, it's rotated at 0 into a really weird place. You may have just not frozen that controller. When I put it back, it looks normal again, but that's going to cause issues because now if you want to mirror paint weights, there's a chance that that will mess it up because it's not a zeroed position. Let me take a look at the elbow. Yeah, I think it's still defaults because I'm seeing pinching. So I'll move on. All the comments I'm going to make for everyone else will probably be relevant, but I think that we're not far enough along yet. All right, thank you. Yang, how'd it go?
I had a lot of problems with it.
Okay,
Like first, my controllers for my left arm like suddenly stopped working. I don't know why.
we talking blue or
And
red?
the red one,
The red one.
I fixed the blue one, but the red one, if you move them up and down, you see the finger controllers just
Yeah,
like going somewhere else.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
it was happening to the blue one too. So I just like unparent the finger controllers to the wrist
Yeah,
and parent them again, and that worked for those. But I don't know why it's not working for the red one.
I think that when I go through and fix the controllers in that shorter video, I found that trying to drive the wrist itself with an expression was a bad idea, and that was causing a mismatch between this controller and the fingers. So, given that fix, when I do that, you could just parent the finger controllers to the wrist controller, and it will work after you've eliminated the extra expression. It's a lot simpler, and I don't know why I did it the wrong way. I think I just, had a aneurysm or something and forgot how to do it. But that should solve that problem. You'll be able to just group or this group. It does still have to be a group, but you'll just be able to parent it directly to the wrist. Okay, so we'll ignore that for a sec. Now, that wasn't a
Okay.
problem with skinning. That's a problem with the controls, right?
Yes, the problem that
Okay.
I have with the skinning is on the feet. If you like rotate them like back and forth, they work, but if you move them like side to sides, like they just break.
Hmm.
Like it's
Okay.
really weird, and I couldn't figure it out.
Okay. So if I do this way, but side to side, they look.
No, the other side, like if you move the blue handler, no,
Oh, Z.
that one.
Wow.
I don't know why that happened, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it.
That's pretty weird. I think that's going to be something to do with the way that you rigged it, because the constraints that are moving each part of it, they move IK handles, but you may have like reparented something. Let's take a look in there. Got to open up the do not touch stuff as well. Okay, so down in here, IK for the left foot is oriented and position constraint. That's good. And let's do hand, hand. So here's IK reverse ball is position constrained. Good. Okay. You have locators, right? Oh, here's the locators. So you've got locator in the left heel, toe, ball, ankle. Right. Okay. Here's the problem. You see this? You've got a constraint on this joint. So on locator L ball. So ankle, ball, toe, heel. So these things. Oh no, that's the set driven key, isn't it?
Yeah,
Ah,
in the
okay.
band,
Yeah,
I think.
that's fine then. I'm sorry, I misread that. Okay. Yeah, that does that. That does that. Okay. I see that one rotating. Do I see this one rotating? That bone, I think it's supposed to no, it can't rotate. No, that's correct. Okay. So I'm just rotating that locator to see what happens. Right. And this one, ankle, right? That shouldn't do anything. Heel. Okay, fine. And if I do this with the heel, that's fine. Hmm. Um, Something's wrong there. Is
Yeah,
that
that's the one that I had me like really. I don't know what to do there.
what's supposed to happen is that it should control the other two locators, which in turn controls the position of all the IKs. Let me try that with the toe. It does the same thing. So did did this foot do the same thing? This other one?
Yeah, both of them.
Both of them. Hmm. So there's something. I mean, we've got a set driven key, but we don't have any orient constraints coming into this. Just a parent constraint here. Wait, what is that parent constraint on? It's on the ankle, or sorry, the heel. Yeah, that's correct. So why isn't that rotating then? Hmm. Let me make sure that mine doesn't do the same thing, because it's possible this is a mistake I made instead. So let me open up my own rig. Let's go to what? Skinning 6 is my current rig. Okay. If it is, then I may have forgotten some step. So that works. That works. That works. Oh, no, yeah. It's something I did. It's not something you did. Okay, so I have to fix that then, which means I'm going to make another small video fixing that. Let's turn this back on. Okay, so there's all of the locators. So what should happen, this is possibly why we don't use locators typically and we use bones instead, but you can see they're all rotating properly, but what they're not doing is orienting the joint. I think that's it, is that not only should we have a point constraint for the IK handles, but we need an orient constraint as well. So let me turn on the bones layer, turn it off of template. There we go. So this bone, I think, needs to be orient constrained by this locator. So let's do that. I'll do constrainer, constrained, rigging, orient, all of them. Actually, one of them, no, it is all of them. All of them. I was thinking, is this going to break our ball roll and toe roll? But no, because those are moving IK handles. So it won't matter. So let's hit apply. And then this one should orient constrain this bone. And do I need to do anything here? I don't think so. That one was already seeming to work anyway. So let's try that now. So now I move it. Seems fine. Tilt it side to side. It still doesn't seem to quite work. The bones are in the right spot, but it's not tipping over. So why not? Because now it's orient constrained. Yeah, you know what? I may need to orient constrain that last one as well for all of them to work properly. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to return this all to 0. And let's orient constrain this last locator to this last bone. Okay, let's see. Still no? Oops. I think that's still no. Yeah. Huh. Well, that's pretty weird. Why not? And also, why is the first bone working properly when the other two are not? I can see all the locators moving. So they are not reorienting themselves. Let's see. This one is set to 9/20/13, and then this locator is not rotated at all. Oh. Oh, okay. So this locator is not rotating. The toe doesn't seem to have rotated either. The ankle. Is that the ankle? I've got that named ankle, but oh, yeah, that's the ankle. Sorry, heel. The heel is rotated. But these other ones are not. I can see them rotating, though. Look, they're rotating. I'm watching them rotate. What the heck? That's really weird. Let me reopen this, because I've just been messing with the internals. There's something odd here, because I can visually see them rotating, and they're not showing those results. We didn't hook up any kind of expression down here. We were just parenting these locators together. So this one, the heel locator, is point and orient constrained to the controller, because that's how the whole thing is moving, right? I move it around, that locator moves around. The IK handles are following the locators, that's how they move around, right? And I see the rotation, but I don't. Well, I guess, okay, they're not rotating because they're children. That one over there is rotating. These ones, relative to their parent, have not rotated. I guess that is the reason why the bone isn't rotating either. But either way, that bone system should line up. So here's the bone system. The ankle bone is in a rotated position. So let's put this back. Okay. So 0, 1, 0. It did move. Okay. It's not matched to this orientation, really. I think this is similar to the wrist problem, that I've overlooked something small and it's causing a pretty big error, because this locator should be moving the IK. Yeah, it's moving the IK around. But we are not orient constraining the bones to anything. We're just controlling their positions. So right now they're not rotating at all, only according to the IK handles. So what do I need to do to rotate those? Well, if this bone would rotate, then those others would rotate, but it can't because they're all IK constrained. So we need to directly control the orientation of each bone. We have to tell it directly, move over. This one doesn't seem to be able to. But Why not? Because of the IK handle. Let's see. So there's an IK. Is it a single chain? Yeah, single chain. Rotates are not locked. Okay. Point constraint. Point constraint, point constraint, point constraint. Okay. Trying to figure this out. At the very least, the toe, it seems, is able to rotate. This one can't, but that one can because the entire thing is tipping over. But does that bone respond to that? I don't think it does. No, it seems to. It's more like it's obeying its IK. What the heck did I do wrong? Here's the short answer to this is going to be, don't worry about it, it's my fault. How about that? The long answer to this is going to be, I am going to pore over this and figure out why this didn't work properly. And if it's because you can't use locators and you have to use a second set of bones, that sucks because this is so much more visually clear, but it would kind of make sense to me. Because the typical way of hooking up a reverse foot is that we use a second bone system, with this one being the parent, next, next, next. And then we use that bone system to drive the position and, I guess, orientation of the bones that are skinned. But you should be able to drive the orientation with these locators. Unless a locator, well, and if a locator doesn't have a rotate, then why are they giving it to me and letting me parent them together? It clearly does have a rotation. So I should be able to orient constrain with offset all three. Although I guess I could get rid of X. No, I want X. Just because it's driven doesn't mean I don't want it to happen. Yeah, it should be fine. So the constrainer, constrained, apply, constrainer, constrain, apply. And this one too, really. So what should happen is that the bone should not only move, but orient according to those locators. But, well, now, is that actually working, or is that my, no, it's not. That middle bone is the problem. This one right here. The two on the other ends, they're working. That last one is not. Huh. That's pretty weird. Yeah, so the short answer here is it's not your fault, it's my fault. So let's stick with that answer for now, Yang, so that all you guys don't have to like keep redoing things that I'm just messing up. But I'll try to figure out what the real solution is to that. Thank you for noticing that though.
Yeah, so I thought that was like a weight painting problem. So I spent a lot of time doing that
Oh, I'm
and I
sorry.
couldn't figure it out.
Yeah,
And I don't have much done on my fingers or like on the band parts
yeah.
of the body.
Okay. So, I mean, I understand that if you were trying to solve something, but yeah, it's my fault, not yours. The reason it didn't come up more is because you do reorient the foot like this very often. You do, of course, go up and down very often, but side to side is not a typical one. And yeah, I was even animating my guy and didn't notice it. I did a very subtle side to side and didn't see that something wasn't functioning. So, yeah, thank you for grabbing that. The good news is that based on the fact that we are referencing our rigs, I could figure out how to solve this and it wouldn't stop us from doing the animation pass. So it is kind of a good object lesson in why we're going to use references for our rigs, because problems happen and oftentimes far too late in the process to do anything about at that current stage. So you have to go back to your master rig file and fix it that way. Okay, so you're saying fingers are not going to be too developed?
Yeah, no, it's just like you can move the fingers by the controllers, but they don't have any bend
Okay,
on the
so you made sure that they were painted 100% per finger then. Yeah.
Yes, but they don't have
Great.
any bending
Okay.
abilities right now.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah. I see
Yeah,
that.
I think I just finished the jaw, the head, the neck, and some parts of the leg
How
or the knee.
how far did you get
But
on the jaw?
I think the jaw is moving right. I
Mm.
think I think I like it for the way it move.
Oh yeah. A little bit boxy. So on the sides of the mouth near the corners, make sure it blends over. The bottom bone will affect skin going up and around and all the way up to like the first quarter of the top. And the same thing is true of the top bone. It'll affect all the way around to about a quarter of the bottom. That'll give this a rounder opening shape. It'll make it
Oh,
squishier.
okay.
Yeah, this is what I think of as like puppet mouth, where it just kind of like opens straight up and down. We want it to be an O kind of shape. Not really important for this animation, by the way, so you can feel free to ignore this part because you've got better things to worry about. But just so that you know for future, that's what we would try. Okay.
So for the part of the ankle, if it is like a part in the bones, don't we have to like unbind the bones to the body and then rebind them? That will mess up all the pain waves.
Wait, say what now?
So like you know how we have a problem on the what is it?
The
The
feet?
ball on the feet.
Yeah.
If it is a part like a problem in the bones that maybe something's wrong there, shouldn't we have like to unbind the skin or like the mesh to the bones in
Not
order to cause a
necessarily.
problem on the pain weights?
No, not necessarily. There's nothing wrong with the skeleton, right? The skeleton has a certain number of bones that are in position, that rotate based on each other, that have names, right? That's what the skin, the paint weights are applied to. The rigging portion, right? The controls, the IKs, are telling the bones what to do, but they're not changing anything about the bones. So, should we have to unbind the mesh to fix the rig? Not usually, no. Usually we can just leave it alone. The only time that's true that we do have to unbind the skin is if we're going to fundamentally change how the skeleton is structured. So if we decided, why can't I see your, oh, there we go. If we decided we need more spine joints, we need to insert more, then at that point, yeah, we might have to unbind the skin. If we had to, if we had this root bone was parented to like one of these by mistake and not to the root, then yeah, we'd probably have to unbind the skin and rebind it. If the orientation of the bones was not zeroed and that was causing a problem with the IKs, so that when we fixed it, the position of this bone was like rotated 15 degrees to the left or the right.
Okay, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Okay, you don't have to tell us that, by the way. You can just go. Then yeah, we might have to unbind the skin and rebind it. But if it's a problem with the rigging, as in like these locators down here, having or destroying these locators doesn't really change anything with regards to the skeleton. So I just deleted them. So they're gone now. Well, most of them are gone. I forgot this one. Where are you? Right? And I can do the same thing with the IK handles. So here's IK reverse toe. Right? I'm just deleting them, and it's not changing anything with regards to our skeleton. It'll change some of the function because like now this won't function, right? But the bone is unharmed. It's right here. So we don't have to worry about what's happening with the mesh because the bone is going to do something to the mesh, but it's doing something to the bones that we have to fix. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, 'cause I was getting confused because you said that you previously used the second set of bones on the feet to do the thing instead of
Yeah.
the
In
locators.
place of these locators, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought maybe if we did that, we have to redo like the whole weight
No.
bands on the
And
body.
and that's the reason why I was trying to use locators instead of bones is because if I say bones, people think, "Oh, things have got to be skin to them." That's not the case. Bones can just be utilities. They can just be a point in space that you can parent things to like a group, right? And so the reverse footlock bones are only meant to move IK handles. They don't do anything else. So if it's the case that we have to use bones, I can redo all of this stuff using bones and not touch the skinning at all. It would be fine. Now, it's worthy to note, though, that even if you do have to unbind the skin, we have a ability to export weight maps right here and import weight maps. So if you did have to get rid of the skin weighting and reapply it, you could potentially save your progress that way, at least most of it, and reload it onto the mesh and get back most of your work. And there would probably be some errors and things that needed to be fixed up, but it wouldn't be as bad as having to start from ground zero, for instance. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. And I
That's
don't
much
know,
better.
maybe I'll demonstrate that just so that you guys know how to do that. But it's really as simple as, use these dialog boxes. The export paint weights map, it needs a size, which is sort of a resolution, and an image format, and then it's going to save somewhere as like a literal picture. So you could choose one of these other versions. It's just a grayscale map. I think it's based on the UV unwrapping. Not that you have to do it; it's automatic anyway. And then you just load it onto the same mesh and rig, and it should put the paint weights back. But yeah, it's only for sort of an emergency where you've got this issue that you've got to handle. All right, man.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's take a look at Miguel's. Somehow he's not here today. I don't know why not. He's always here, but we'll take a look at his stuff anyway. Maybe he's sick. Okay, let me go ahead and set the bones to template and the geometry to render. And then let's take a look. Okay, that all seems to be working fine. And let's try the hip swivel. Okay, a little bit weird there. We've got parts that are not quite moving the same. Yeah, not quite sure what that's attributable to, but something to look at and kind of get under control. It's a fiddly bit. Okay, probably don't want influence for these bones down below or at the belt line. Just relegate it to the upper body only. I think maybe he didn't get to do very much paint weighting in this area, at least, because most of it looks default right now. Let's go ahead and zero that back out. Yeah, it's looking pretty default. I think maybe he didn't get to do the paint weighting because of the game jam. Let's try the jaw. No, he did the jaw at least. So that there's no way that that's default. Okay. So maybe he got like halfway through or something. So like I was telling other people, Miguel, if you're watching this later, try to get a nice round shape out of the mouth by allowing the lower jaw bone to affect all the way up to like the upper quarter, and same thing for the upper bone all the way down. Yours is opening a little bit more roundly, but we don't want the lips stretching like that. So at that point, it needs to be a little bit more tightly controlled, but the side looks pretty good. Don't let it affect the Adam's apple in front of the neck, and probably need to clean up the ear stuff, soften that out or remove it. Yeah, my guess is going to be Game Jam took away too much time. Elbow looks good. That looks real good. Okay. Too much influence for the arm on the back. We don't want any kind of wobbling, moving on the back, stuff moving in and out. Leave that to the clavicle. And same thing, just below the armpit, we leave all that to the clavicle. All right, let's see. Wrist is a little bendy. You can see here when I go side to side, then we start to get a pinch here. It's a bit tough to control, but you just want to have very little influence just behind the wrist for anything in the hand, and then distribute between those two further down. Forearm bone. Forearm bone has quite a lot of influence all the way up here. Let's try fingers. Good. Fingers look separated. Are they bendable? They are. Okay, so we did have some time to do something a little bit too round right now. Those fingers. I was talking about it earlier. Let me do wireframe unshaded so we can see. But so for each section, there we go. So for each flat section here, make sure that the flat section stays basically box shaped. So the previous bone needs 100% ownership of these first couple vertices, and then the second set, it needs nearly 100% ownership, like 90%. That way it's just affecting one bone at a time, is affecting the flat parts, right? The joints are different. They need to trade off, but the flat parts need to be one bone pretty much 100%. I mean, it's like 90% or so. Okay. The outside on this one is better. The inside still needs to be a little bit more tightly controlled. Let's see what we got. And they're about the same. I mean, that one, see how much volume it's losing. It does mean that the geometry starts to interpenetrate and stuff, but that's okay. These are literally wrinkles, and so nobody's going to really stare at that or notice that. And it's going to feel more natural if the geometry is interpenetrating a little. Wow, that one is like a rainbow. That one's like over smoothed or something. Okay. Cool. So I think generally this is working out. Just a little bit more detail in like the legs and crotch and belt, a little bit more on the fingers, and then the shoulder neck area didn't quite look like you've done very much yet. Like when the neck moves, the stuff around the neck collar area, it shouldn't move. Only the neck itself and the top of the collar. Did the head do anything? Yeah, the head absolutely shouldn't affect anything more than halfway down the neck itself. And then for the shoulder part, yeah, less effect for the shoulder, the clavicle down here on the side of the body, and then more control for it to be squishing the collar up against the neck area. So I found in order to get the collar to stay still, I had to share this the collar between the spine and the clavicle rather than the neck and the clavicle, and I got better results that way. And that way it didn't move as much when this is rotating. All right, man. Good luck. Ask questions if you need to. Gunter, you back? Are you back, Gunter?
Yes, I'm back.
Ah, hello. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at yours. Did you get all the way through it, or did you have stuff that was not complete?
I got all the way through it, but it wasn't as good. I don't think it's as good as it could be.
Well, I mean, it's a subjective thing, it's a tough thing, and paint weighting takes a lot of time. I will say, here for the hip swivel, the belt itself looks good. It's not bending and squishing. It doesn't look like it's made of jello, but it is responding to these motions, which is good. Then the belt loops just have to be matched to it. So I'd say
I don't know how to do that though.
Well, okay, I'll show you. So let's look at the mesh, right? The part that you did paint. So we'll go to paint, skin cluster, skin cluster paint weights. And so we're looking at the root where you've
all
got.
I did for that though is just did smoothing. All I did was smoothing.
Then maybe all you have to do is smoothing for the belt. Maybe.
I tried that, but it just, I don't know. I do not know.
Okay, so what I can see is that maybe because of that, it feels more reasonable because it's pliable but not absolute. But that means it's going to be really hard to match. So I can see your left hip has some influence. Your right hip has some influence. The root and the pelvis, they're all sharing influence. What about spine? So that's the only one that I think really shouldn't. Let's move the spine and see what happens. Okay, so the spine actually messes it up. So the spine's the one I would remove. But that means that you have to essentially pose your figure, like move the leg way out over here. Oftentimes I'll like move this foot really far back in the most extreme way that I can to see if I can get the mesh to deform a certain way. Maybe tip this over. I'd probably leave that alone though, because I'd prefer if you got rid of all that influence. So now the belt loops are way out of line, right? So having looked at the mesh, then I would come in here and paint these and try to match what I saw. So hip L, right? We don't want any influence on this one, but this one we do. So I'd try to add Probably set it to like add a low value and then paint it on and see, does it get closer to the target location? Looks like it is. Green was what I was seeing, and so green is what I'd be aiming for. If it's a little hard to paint and to see, you can turn one mesh off, but in this case, since we're matching, you should probably leave them on. Okay, so it's kind of twisting itself inside out because it's like going somewhere, but we don't quite know where. I think probably the pelvis needs more influence here too. And what I'd prefer is to just kind of go look at the mesh, decide what a value should be, and then kind of flood that value. That's what makes this easier to do, but since we don't have that liberty, then I've got to kind of like guess. And it's going to be twisting itself inside out crazily like this until we find what the right balance is. I do feel that the right hip, though, should probably have virtually no influence. So I could say replace 0 for that one. And then for the spine, replace 0. So at least we've only got 2 bones to mess with instead of 4. Make sure, okay. So that one, root still has some influence. Pelvis has quite a bit. And this side's hip, or that's the wrong side, this side's hip has a bit of influence. So I would guess now I could start smoothing and it won't go back to those, the ones that have 0, but it'll share between the existing ones. So now it's getting back into its shape when I smooth a little bit. Okay, pelvis. Pelvis should have more influence on this belt loop than the hip because the hip is rotating and the hip means thigh, right? So if I go to the hip, I should probably reduce this one. Let's do scale. I like to scale about 50%. So I'm removing influence now from the hip. So it should be going back to the pelvis and the root. There we go. Smoothing it out, smoothing it out. So it's still like it's floating off to the side here, but it's in the right shape now, right? So that's why in the demo, what I did was to go into the mesh itself and carefully control all this stuff first, because then it makes it easier to match. It makes the job of perfecting it harder, but it does make it so that you can match those things. With you just smoothing it all out makes it look really good on the mesh, but you've got these parts that you need to match, which is going to be really hard. So I would look through on the root, what color is the belt area right underneath the loop, right? It's like cyan. And so I'd probably have to like write that down. Root, cyan for this one. Pelvis, lime green. Hip left, which is the one that we're right here, it's like lime green. And then you have to just apply that. So we want lime green, cyan, and then maybe this work, but then we've also got the spine, which is like blue. So if I do all 4 of those things now, it'll at least kind of match up. Let's try it. I'm going to go to the select mode and just grab those vertices so I can flood rather than mess around with painting. Okay. So the root, we'll do replace, was cyan. So that's something like here. So about like 30% or so. The pelvis was green, which is about here. It's like 40%. The hip was green. Yep, that's the correct one, just checking. And then the spine one was like blue. So that's somewhere down like 20%. So it's close. It's close, but it's not exactly the right numbers. And I think the opposite hip, the right hip, probably had some influence as well, unfortunately. So there we can see it's even closer. So that's what you'd have to do at this point, unless you want to go and do the belt area properly. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at the rest. Okay. Is that what you did in a lot of areas, is just smoothed it?
Well, when I was finishing things up, because I was running out of time.
So the clavicle probably has a little too much influence on the chest.
I followed the video.
Not well. Remember, I didn't demonstrate to completion in that video, right?
Oh, no, I'm talking about the speed up video.
Oh, how? It's sped up.
Slow down.
Yeah, but can you really tell what I'm doing?
I'm just doing my color.
Okay. I mean, I the reason that I didn't demonstrate to completion because I literally didn't want you to do that. I didn't want you to follow rote step by step exactly what I'm doing. I want you to think and learn concept.
Yeah, I tried that afterwards. Like for the way, I mean, I did. Oh,
But it serves you much better to learn how something works and then work it out for yourself than it does to just, pedantically follow exactly what I'm doing. That's why I didn't include that.
I, I didn't. I also tried my best to like color it a bit
I mean, I'd rather you look
early
at
on.
how the deformation looks and then judge, does that look like how I want it to look, and then paint the weights to get it to look the way that you want it to look. Right? That's what
Yeah,
you're
for the
supposed to
arm,
be doing.
yeah,
And th-
I was doing
and that
all
does look
things for
good.
the arm
I like that. That's a
because
that's a
I
good controlled pinch.
follow your idea when you said to basically do what you did with the fingers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that was some
not
weird
that one.
flipping. It's probably the IK handle. Yeah, and so I do want that. But if you're just trying to like copy exactly what I'm doing in the video,
Oh
well,
no, for the arm, I didn't do a copy exactly. I just did the
yeah.
when you said make it basically like how you did with the fingers, and I was like,
Hmm.
I'll follow that because all I
Yes.
did was follow what you did with the middle finger,
Yeah,
and then just repeat the process with all the
that's
fingers
exactly
instead of
right.
following the video
Now you did
exactly.
lose some volume on that one. So ring finger, right? We don't have those square shapes. Pinky looks pretty good. Let's see. Middle, yeah, middle's good. And that would make sense because you said it, you were following along with that one. And then pointer finger, pretty good. A little bit more preservation of this box shape on the first joint, but the rest of them look pretty good. So yeah, in general, just the ring finger doesn't quite look right.
And the thumb, I had to do all on my own.
Yes. Okay, not too bad. I'd say just limit the amount that it moves the pad back here. Yeah, not too bad. The mesh that we're working with is not like the most amazing mesh in the world anyway. I picked it mostly because the polygon density is light enough that it doesn't feel super punishing to do all of this stuff too. But if you had a denser mesh, then you're more capable of tightly controlling everything. Okay. Try to reduce the amount that the neck moves the chest area. It shouldn't really move it much at all. That one looks okay. How'd the jaw turn out for you?
Pretty good.
A little boxy still.
What do you mean? It looks rounded. Oh,
I mean, it looks roundish, like it looks oval, right? But we want these sides to kind of stretch vertically, and that will happen if you have a really soft blend on the corners
yeah. I
and
smoothed
influence
it
up and
with
down.
edges like a lot.
Yeah, this is not wrong, right? This looks like how a mouth works, right? But a little more smoothing would close that opening a little to get a rounder shape overall, and that's usually ideal. The teeth is another thing. Like, we're never going to open the mouth this wide unless it's a cartoon. At that point, we need the teeth to stretch and bend too, which is a really weird problem to have, but it's just a part of like cartoony rigging. Uh, you might have a little stretching on the inside of the mouth. Were you painting the inside as well?
I
It has an influence. So if there is an inside of the mouth, it kind of has to match the outside. So you kind of have to go back and forth like this. Even though we don't see it, it can poke through the sides and cause problems with the teeth and stuff like that. But yeah, this is not bad. The fact that it's moving the hair is not good.
yeah I hid the hair.
Yeah, I mean, and exactly that's what I did the entire time. Is the hair was just hidden, And so once you bring it back, it's like, whoops, oh, forgot to do that part. Okay. And you got the eyes and stuff, I would imagine. Yeah, cool. All right. Anything else you want me to look at for yours?
Like the feet.
Oh, were they a problem or were they working for you?
I just want to make sure I did it right because it looks weird to me.
Yeah, you did it right. It's just the polygon density. Like when you are making a model for animation, you're going to have to think about this kind of thing. Like there are bones that are going to go in here. They're going to rotate, and so this foot would need several more edge loops that are kind of radial from the top of the foot arch. That way, when you do this, they fan out and they squish up and they look really good. But this shoe rig just doesn't really have that, and so it doesn't really look like it's working properly. But it is, right? You didn't do anything wrong. It's just that the mesh is not really.
Also, the legs. I didn't have time to fully uh, do the legs, but
I mean, the back of the knee and the front of the knee looks fine, and that's the most important bit. The part that's going to suffer is up here near the hips, the butt and the crotch. It's going to lose volume, and that requires a lot of careful control, like top of the thigh and then going around to the butt. I do like about a third of or so of the sped up video is me doing that stuff, but I would have to talk about it, I think, at length to really express what I'm thinking about and doing. Yeah, and it helps sometimes, like put on a pair of jeans, sit down, look at where the wrinkles happen, do it in front of a mirror, stretch your leg up and down, and see where things pinch and overlap, where things are preserved in volume. Because like up here in the area that you would think about as like underwear, it's really stretchy and pliable, but just below that where it's thigh, it's almost completely held in place. So you've got these few little edge loops to squish and bend things, but on the back for the butt shape, it has to be distributed, otherwise it's not going to hold that shape. So there are some approach things, like we're not in this class necessarily going to make like a whole human being rig. We're not going to make it from scratch, and so you're not going to have the opportunity to make those decisions. But if you do character modeling, think about that. Okay. Sorry, I'm distracted. There's some guy like with cats in front of my house, and I'm not sure why. I think he's like trying to sell some cats or something. All right, any questions?
I think you got them.
Okay.
Mostly.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's more art than science. Skinning. There's not really a right or a wrong way. There's a good or a bad looking result, and so you just have to play with it and kind of get used to the feel.
Okay.
Okay. Let's take a look. So we've got Paul's. Whoa. Look at that. What's happening? Okay, something really weird is happening with your rig, Paul. Your wrist bone is moving, but your finger bones are not. And the opposite thing is happening on the other side. What the heck is happening? Huh. I'm a little concerned about that. That's more of a rigging than a skinning issue. Okay. Yeah, I got kind of an error here where the sleeve is not transitioning smoothly. I'm tempted to look at what's going on with the rigging, but let's do the skinning part first. Yeah, make sure that the clavicle doesn't move the lower chest like that. Otherwise, you get this hemorrhage, and it shouldn't cross over to the opposite side. Let's see, neck. Yeah, just limit the amount that it moves below the collar. It shouldn't really move the collar much at all. Maybe just a tiny bit, but generally apply the collar to the spine instead of the neck. Same thing with the head. It looks like the lower jaw right now is moving far too much of the neck. Or sorry, the head bone is moving far too much of the lower jaw and the neck and shoulders. Okay, so it doesn't look like maybe he got very far in the skinning. He's getting there, but it's not quite ready. I can see that we have an opening, but you got to eliminate a lot of that upper mouth from the lower jaw. That way it'll open. So if you're not already doing it, in the video what I show over and over is that I'll pose it like this and then start doing my skin painting so that all of these vertices hop back up to their proper position as I'm painting. And then I'll zero it all out, take a look, and then move on again. If there are problems with the rigging, then I need to kind of know about that. I don't remember receiving a message from you about it. Where did the bones go? Bones layer. That's weird. I thought that was on. Ah, strange. I kind of want to look at that and see what's going on here. So the bones are point constrained. That's the issue. These joints should not be point constrained. They should only be orient constrained. So, oh, you're using a parent constraint. So, Paul, there's a difference between parent, point, and orient, and you got to know the difference. They do three different things, right? Parent includes both point and orient, and you can't separate them out. It's really hard to anyway. Point is just a position. Orient is just rotation. And then we've also got scale, aim, and pull vector down below those. Don't mix them up. They do completely different things. What the finger controls are supposed to do to these joints is only orient constrain them. So if I come up here and I break these connections, and if it was in our default position anyway, right? Then when I move the wrist, there we go. That's what should be happening, is that the wrist and these finger bones are not like changing their relationship, stretching the hand. Okay, I did that in a non-zeroed position, so this is definitely not correct. You got to zero everything out first before doing that, but it should be more like that. So it looks like you're getting the wrong constraints a few different times.
Hey, Morty.
Hello.
Hello. So this one over here, yeah, this one's not right either, because it is the IK handle, not the bone, right? So you are, again, point constraining the bone. That's not what we're doing. Let's break connections. Instead, it's the IK handle, this, which is responsible for moving that bone. But now we can see the rest of the wrist is doing that stretchy thing because they're not orient constrained. It looks like this one, oh, this one is just not controlled at all. And this one is, yeah, it's got too many. So you're not quite doing what I'm describing. You're doing it vaguely and getting some of the definitions wrong. So go back, go slow, and make sure that you get the right kind of constraint. Otherwise, your rig is going to be a mess. It's going to be flying all over the place. Okay. Remember to restrict the amount that this affects the upper body. Same thing here, restrict how much that affects the lower body. Shouldn't really affect it all. It looks like the mesh is working properly here. It's just the belt loops that are not. Let's take a look at the leg. Okay, a little bit more work on the knee to preserve the size of the thighs. Let's move that further away so it's not flipping. Yeah, a little bit more work on the knee, thigh area especially. And then, yeah, less influence for the feet bones on the calf. That shouldn't really change those very much. Yeah, just overall a bit more careful work on the legs. They're working in general, but they need some detail. Okay. The big problem though is how the rig functions. You got to solve that pretty soon, and you won't be able to animate it properly if you don't, because it's going to fly apart. So go back and carefully make sure that you're following those instructions on how to hook up the skeleton. So like I was describing earlier to some of these guys, if you get rid of the rigging entirely, then it doesn't affect the paint weights or the skeleton. So I'm just going to reopen your file real quick, because I can see like this arm over here, it's not even in its default position. But if I come over here to this other arm, let's open the do not touch. Got some orphan joint here. Where is that? Oh, it's way off in the distance. So delete that joint 7 that doesn't belong to anything, and then click the root and then hit F to come back here. So if I get rid of the rigging in this arm, it's not going to affect how the mesh is being treated or even how the skeleton is structured. But I can see lots of joints that are not zeroed, that are not reset, and it's a concern. Like that controller was 180 degree flipped for some reason. This one is not in its zeroed location either. Where did that go? Oh, it went over there. Oh boy. You got to do this stuff with a lot more care, or you're going to suffer for it. Where's the IK? So IK foot, IK arm. Okay, so if I delete this IK, right, the skeleton didn't move, which is fine. That's a good thing. If we come into the bones and we select and break connections, then it no longer is being affected by that constraint. We could also instead select a bone and do delete by type constraints. And that is another way to get rid of that history, which is a good idea. We can do the same thing here. We can break connection on any given channel to take another try at whatever it was supposed to be doing. And you may have to do this because some of this stuff is not hooked up correctly. Okay. And yeah, I mean, I'll help you as much as I can, but really the instructional videos are the things that will help the most because it's carefully going through those things step by step. If you're skipping around or fast forwarding, don't, because that's going to be killing you. Okay. Thank you. Send me messages if you need to. Andrew. All right, so he was saying he's having trouble with some part of this. Let me go check the message. Let's see. Or no, wait, Yang, I think that was you. You were the one talking to me, weren't you?
Discord?
No, on direct message.
Oh yeah, I sent you a message like a couple weeks ago about another problem, but we figured that out.
Oh, it wasn't about this one? No, I think it was Andrew then.
Yeah, it was Andrew. I think he tested you like yesterday at 9.
Yeah, that's it. Let's see. And this vertex on the back of the hip that's doing weird stuff. Could not get the skin on the neck to stay in the shirt when the neck pivots in any way. Okay, so the neck part is easy enough to explain. Instead of letting the neck do things to this chest skin, make sure that it's this bone down here that's controlling that. Not even the shoulder bones should be controlling that really, just a little tiny bit. But in general, it'll stay put if you do that. And the neck bone itself should only affect like from this point up. And problem, I can see that you didn't fix the fact that you've got 2 bones there. So you've got this bone, and then there's this bone, and they're in the exact same spot. I remember when we covered this in video, you had to have fixed that by this point. That's the kind of error that's going to have to make you redo your skinning. Okay, so let's try this real quick because it's a good example of can we fix this without starting over on the skinning. I'm going to return the controller back to 0. All of these controllers should go back to 0. And I'm going to click the mesh. That's weird. It's like in smooth display. Probably don't want to do that. So I'm going to click the mesh, and I'm going to go up to skin, export weight maps. Okay, we'll just leave it at 256. Image format IFF. It doesn't really matter because Maya's going to read this. We don't need to see this. And I'm going to hit export. I'm just going to put this on my desktop. I'm going to name it shirt map. And it says 15 skin maps will be written to disk. Proceed? Sure. So it's going to flood my desktop with all these weird images. So maybe I should have picked like a folder. And I'm going to do the same thing for the head. I'm going to go skin, export weight maps. I'm not even going to choose the option box. It's all the same settings. And then I'm going to choose my desktop and say head maps. Save. And I guess it exported that one as well. So it actually, oh, I wrote shit map instead of shirt map. Whoops. It actually did make a folder for me over here. and it made a map file as well. So it didn't flood the desktop, thankfully. Now they've got it so that it makes a folder. So with that done, I'm going to unbind the shirt, unbind skin. I'm going to unbind the head. And then I'm going to come in and delete this joint. So I'm going to unparent the neck. Delete joint 2. Now, unfortunately, joint 2 is the one you were controlling. Crap. Okay, but neck has the rest of the skeletal structure in it. Yeah, I'm gonna still do it. So I'm gonna unparent neck, delete joint, and then reparent neck to spine. Okay, so the reason I had to unbind the skin for that is because we have changed the structure of your skeleton now. Okay, none of the other stuff needs to be disconnected like the IKs on the other limbs, but that did need to be fixed, and the skin need to be fixed. So if there are other cases of that, like double joints somewhere, we would really want to know about it and fix it before proceeding. I think that's the only one I see, but I can't be entirely sure. Then the last thing I would have to do, because you had the other joint controlled by your controller, I have to reestablish that this needs to be orient constrained like that. Okay, so now the skeleton should work again. Okay, and if I move this one, yeah, okay, so I'm just making sure the skeleton works again. And now we're going to rebind the skin. So I'm going to grab the skeleton and the shirt, and I'm going to bind it, just bind. Then I'm going to select the mesh and come to skin, import weight maps. And it asks me to browse to the desktop. You can see here's a weight map, and then there's 2 folders for them. Shit map, unfortunately, that's what I called it. And then head maps up here. Inside those folders, there's a bunch of images, but don't worry about that. So I'm going to import shirt map or shit map, and for a moment everything disappears, and then it pops back into existence, and now all the same weights that we had before should be on here again. Let's do it for the head before we try it. Import desktop head maps. It's going to go read all those files. No skins were selected. Oh, because I didn't bind it. Sorry. I forgot to rebind this. So I'm going to select the joint, the skin, bind skin. Now, import head maps. Disappears for a second, reestablishes. There we go. So now if I rotate, okay, well, the whole bottom of it is like holding still, but you know, it wasn't working before, so okay, that part didn't work. Uh-oh. Well, it didn't work. Dang. It may be that it actually worked for most of it, or that the fact that we had an extra bone in there was too much for it to try to fix. No, it looks like none of it. I did actually bind this skin, didn't I? Yeah, skin cluster. Let's try one more time. Import shirt maps. Taking a look at the messages down there. It looks like in this case it didn't work for that part, which is unfortunate because I think that means it's not going to work. It did work for the, I thought it worked for the head. Didn't it work for the head? I mean, it worked for that part. Jaw? No, I'm not sure it worked in either case. So reparenting, restructuring the skeleton, it might not work at all. I've had it successfully work in the past, but yeah, this time it didn't seem to. Well, that's your only option. Like, if that worked, then you'd save yourself a bunch of progress. But if it didn't, then yeah, I don't know what to tell you. you'd have to unbind and do all the paint weighting over again, because having an extra bone in there is really going to mess things up. Let me just entertain the notion of leaving that bone in for the sake of allowing you to continue your progress. So I'm going to reload your file, and let's see what happens if we leave that bone in. I guess nothing really bad. It's just that there's an extra joint in there that's getting in the way of skin painting. All right, my advice to you then would be leave that bone alone. Don't take it out because the skin remapping thing didn't work. If you want to try it anyway, just to see if it'll function, then that's up to you. But try to ignore one of the two of these in your skin paint weighting so that it'll work properly. One of them is named neck. The other one is named like joint 2. I would maybe name that duplicate neck or something just so that you can find it. Yeah, because it looks like the function of your mesh is not going to be greatly impeded by it, and it's going to set you way back. So try to just leave it there. Quickly look through some of the other parts. That's close enough. Take a look at the finger joints. You might want to make those controllers a bit bigger because they're really hard to find. Let me turn the bones back off. Okay, like I was saying for others, a little bit less bendy on the fingers. Less like a rainbow, more like several boxes. Yeah, and it looks like they're all kind of doing that. Then let's take a look at the lower body. Said something weird was happening in the back. Oh yeah, I see. First, don't smooth the preview of the mesh. Uh-oh. Okay. It looks like a vertex has been moved even before skin weighting took place. So what you got there is like some modeling history. That is another thing that potentially destroys your mesh and makes it so that you would have to unbind the skin and rebind the skin. I don't even think, I mean, let me grab it. Let's see. Where is it going? Okay. Oh, there's more than one. Oh boy. Yeah, there's several. That's a bad problem. Let's see, if nothing has been deleted, then it's maybe possible to just move all these back into place. But I'm seeing so many vertices. I think something was separated and then snapped. Oh yeah. Okay. There's like one here. Okay, I moved something that I shouldn't have. Should be the one that's attached to this edge. If I do that, control right click 2 vertices, then I can get rid of that one to get the correct vertice back out of there. So yeah, not great. That is a modeling problem. And modeling problems really badly need to be fixed before we do skin paint weighting. So your options there are take the hit on that particular grade and just move on with the rest of it and try to ignore it, or really unbind the skin, go and fix all these problems, the extra joint, the modeling errors, like delete the faces, remake them, restructure the mesh, and then start over again if you want it to be right. In a job situation, there'd be nothing for it but to just immediately unbind the skin and do it right. In this situation, you can choose, how much progress you want to lose or gain and where you want to take the hit on the grade. But yeah, that's what that is. That's a modeling error. So when we were fixing the mesh, you made some error, never saw it, and then too late have noticed it and would have to go back. Yeah. Such is the nature of rigging. It is a very, very specific, very picky discipline, which is why not everybody wants to do it. All right. Thank you. Going on to Isaac. Isaac, your guy doesn't work. All right. Well, your guy doesn't work, so I'm not sure what you want me to do. It looks like something is bound, though, to the skeleton because it's rainbow colored. That's usually the sign. Hmm. Skin clusters. All right. So there are skin clusters, but it's not moving. Did I get an error when I opened this? Let's not save. File being opened, created a student version. Missing open color IO configuration file. Well, that doesn't sound like that matters. Huh. But it seems to matter. Okay. Isaac, don't know what's going on. I've got a problem with your rigs function. It seems to not be displaying any of its changes. What version of Maya are you using? If it's earlier, or sorry, if it's later than 2020, then that might have an issue. If you're on 2021, for instance, that might be causing this problem. Try to see if you can figure out what's happening here, but yeah, I've got no functionality. Error, warning, error, invalid flag, key minimum scale. Let's see. 2018. Trying to figure out what version of Maya. I think it reads in here somewhere. But let's go to the very top. Oh, you know what? That's the end. That's like the beginning of the history for my entire session. I think I can. How do I clear? I want to clear the output so that I can see it fresh when I open his file. Is there a button for that? I swear there is. Clear input. No, that's clear. Clear history. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to open your file one more time. There we go. Now it's popping up. All right. I think it's saying this is your version, I think. 2018. Only date there I see is 2018. So if it is your Maya version, then update to 2020. Or if you're using something earlier, oh wait, here we go. Config Maya 2022 default. Is that even available? So yeah, Isaac, if you've got version 2022, that's definitely not compatible, I think. If you're on 2021, consider coming back to 2020 so that we're able to trade files back and forth. There's probably stuff that we could do, like we could export an FBX with all of the bones still intact, but I'd really prefer not to do that. If you absolutely can't install a different version, then you could record your screen demonstrating all of the different parts of the body so that I could assign a grade that way. Because once it goes into Unity, it won't be a problem anymore. But yeah, I need to be able to mess with all the different parts of your file. Sorry, I'm sure it was an unintentional thing. And Elias, last one, says incomplete as well. I'm getting the same error for his file. It was saying Maya 2022 or something popped up here, which I wasn't aware. Yeah, and so I think I'm going to have the same problem. Yeah, I do. Okay, so Elias, same problem. If you're on a different version of Maya, I want to really quickly look at what version is available. Where are we at? Autodesk. Yeah, 2022 apparently is available. I just saw, and that would mean I'm 2 versions behind you guys, and it's making it incompatible.
How do you
So,
like update your Maya? Because I'm still doing 2018 and it's working just fine.
well, you don't have to, but when you go to the Autodesk site and tell them, "Hey, I'm a student, give me a free pass," then there's various different version downloads available. So that's how you would update it. So the last
Okay.
time I went and took a look, I think I went from 19 to 20 because it was available there. But it's kind of a surprise to me that we're
Yeah, I'm
already on
still on
22.
2020.
Well, that's good because I am. We want to make sure that we're compatible. So yeah, that's what I recommend you guys. I think I'll try to send you guys a note to that effect as well. All right, everybody. Questions, problems, things that you would like me to discuss? And as a reminder to everyone that Yang discovered side-to-side motion on the foot like that doesn't work properly because of a bone problem, and that's my fault. You do not have to fix it. If you can figure out how to fix it, good for you, and share it with everybody else. But I think I will try to take a look at that, and you do not have to fix it. All right, you guys, if that's it,
All right.
all right, then talk to you guys on Friday. The next video and portion is up. You will be responsible for animating your rigs, and then we will import them into Unity and set up their character animation controller next week. So there are a few cycles that you'll be responsible for: idle, walk, run, jumping, and one extra action, which is upper body only. It should be fairly fun, question mark, because it is animation and not rigging. Just before I sign off here, I'll show you the setup animation file. The reason that I fixed the wrist controller is because I was posing the character like this and getting pissed off at it. And so that's why I fixed it in the first place. But here is just the framework for the different cycles: an idle, a walk, a run, jump up, mid, down, and some sort of extra action, which I actually, there we go. I actually have one that will have him perform via button press. I still need to fix my, I think replace the rig file where I did the skinning properly. Okay?
All right.
All right, guys. Send me a message if you have trouble. Talk to you on Friday.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.